Hello everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to explain to you the procedures to take to complete assignment 2. What you'll be drawing is your chair in linear 2-point perspective, and you'll also draw that chair with shape portraying just the negative space around that chair. To get started, go under File, New, name your file. You're going to have 2 artboards, so you can change where you need them, and I find it easiest to work with the 2 artboards side by side. You will want this to be letter size, although the sketchbook drawing you've completed perhaps isn't letter size. It could be a little bigger, it could be a little smaller, it might not be as vertical, it might be a little more square like my example. You're going to place that into the 8.5 by 11 and just center it nicely in proportion, and I'll show you that. So I'm working in the units of measurement are my inches, and my orientation is vertical, and I'm going to say okay. So I have 2 pages side by side, 2 artboards, and I have my base art layer. I'm going to go ahead and view my rulers in case I want to pull down any kind of guidelines that might help me set this up. And what I'm going to do is go under File, Place. I want to place my photo booth image, that's a JPEG, into my Illustrator file. This chair photo JPEG is exactly what I want. And I'm going to keep it to the left page, but we'll notice that it's too large. I'm certain that your scan or photo booth image is going to be larger than the 8.5 by 11. And all you need to do is use your Shift key and use your solid arrow tool and just select it and keep it in proportion. By holding the Shift key, it keeps all sides in proportion. And just center it, fill your 8.5 by 11, but give yourself a tiny bit of margin left and right or top and bottom. Just center it nicely. And you could pull down a guideline, and you could place your second image beside the first image. The 2 should be close to the same size for continuity and occupy just about the same place on the 2 different artboards side by side. I have one already set up that has more detail to make this tutorial go a little faster. And what I'm going to do is turn off these 2 layers so you can see how I've placed my 2 photo booth images. The one on the right, a little piece of the leg remained. Here I inadvertently cropped it off, but I can easily draw that leg back on. And the way you should set up your file is on layer 1, your photo booth images should be there. The next layer you're going to want are your guidelines. You might need to draw in different vanishing points that might go off the left or right side of the page. You might need other guidelines like I did here to show me where the leg of my chair would go. You might want to correct or improve on your perspective. I would grab from my ruler the light blue or whatever color your system has set up guideline that would show me my eye level. And I have this second guideline here to help me remember where that leg is going to sit in this particular chair. The next layer you definitely need could be, you could call it line art, and just a refresher, I'm just going to show you, remember, new layer, and I'm going to call this shape art, and I'm going to say okay. So in my particular file, I'm going to have 4 layers. Yours could have 3. If you want to work this way, you could have 4 layers. All right. I'm going to focus on my line art, and then I'm going to tell you about the shape art. And as you can see on the left side in my line art, I've set up my guidelines to help me correct my chair. Before I get too much further, I want to show you this student example. This student has a very dramatic, almost oversized chair in exaggerated proportion. and exaggerated perspective. And this student's guidelines totally went off the picture plane. You can set your file up that way as well. It's easier if you set your artboards up in a vertical orientation to use the left and right sides of the page. So you would have two artboards stacked one on top of the other if this is your drawing approach. This would also be the correct approach to this assignment. All right, back to my example, because this example is going to allow me to show you how to convert an anchor point, draw a curve, and fill in shapes. And that's the main objectives of this assignment, is to practice drawing different thicknesses of line and to draw in a more natural curved style instead of making it very rigid and cube-like. And I also want you to understand a basic principle about perceiving depth not only through perspective but through contrast of thick and thin lines. And I'll get to that in one moment. So I'm going to turn on my line art and stay on that layer. And as you can see, I've already started drawing this chair. This piece of chair back here, the headrest, would be the thinnest line on my drawing. It's the furthest thing away from my eye. So I'm going to keep that as a 1-point rule. But the arm of the chair that's closest to my eye, I'm going to actually exaggerate the depth and have that be a 3-point rule. And this is the concept I need you to remember. That thick lines that are darker are going to appear that they move forward in space to help the eye see depth. Thinner lines are going to appear as if they go back in space. This arm of this chair is in the middle ground, and I'm going to make that a 2-point rule. So here you might already get the sense of depth of this chair through the varying thicknesses. Things closer to our eye will be darker and thicker, and things away from our eye will be thinner and perhaps a little smaller. All right, so I'm going to stay on that line right here because this is not right. I need to show you the Convert Anchor Point tool, and I need to zoom in a little bit to do that. So it's Command plus, and on my pen tool, I have these different options. When you draw a line, you will be using anchor points. And the best way to draw a line is with the fewest anchor points possible, and use this option, your Convert Anchor Point tool. As you get fast and proficient, you can just use your keyboard command and say Shift C to get to it. I'm going to just select it right there. And right here in my chair, you can see it's a curve. If I grab my anchor point and pull, you can see I get these handles, and I can grab the handles and make the subtle curves that I need to make this chair more like the overstuffed, soft kind of chair that it is. And these anchor points, I can pull the handles and make my adjustments as necessary. All right? That takes a little finesse and a little practice. Do not do this when you draw. No, no, no. That is totally wrong. Don't do it. All right? This is the way you draw curves in Illustrator. The other way, click, 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 is going to have a jaggy, unnatural, hard to manipulate line. All right. So I have this particular line, and then I have this line segment here I'm going to want to draw. Now what I think I want to do is keep this separate from what I just drew, because I'm going to want this to be even thicker, that whole little piece, because this arm actually moves closer to my eye and this edge than these edges over here. And I want to really emphasize space. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and what I'm going to do is I don't want to join it, so I don't want to activate that line. I just want to click near it. And this can be all one big sloping gentle curve. I think I'm going to be able to get it to there. and you're thinking, how am I going to make a diagonal a curve? Watch. And I don't want to connect it to that quite yet, so I'm just going to click a smidge away from it. I'm going to take my Convert Anchor Point tool. I'm going to grab my first anchor point, and I'm just going to pull this. And that's maybe a little close. I can add a conversion right there. Whoops, there, I got it. Whoops, going a little crazy. I got to zoom out so I can see it a little better. There it is. And this just takes a lot of practice and trial and error to really figure out how many anchor points you're going to want to place in your drawing. If you move one of these handles and have it in the position you want and let go, it'll remain. The second one you can pull, but I think it's just a little too dramatic. And I think I'm going to want to add an anchor point, so I'm going to zoom in. And that leads me to this, add anchor point. So as long as my line is activated, I can add an anchor point. I can manipulate it with my Convert Anchor Point tool to help me get a much more subtle curve that matches this original sketchbook drawing. I think that's going to do it for now. I'm going to take my open arrow tool, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to grab it and pull it in a little bit. And while I'm in here, I'm just going to grab that. I need to scroll down just a tiny bit, and I need to adjust this so it's a little straighter. Same with this one. That's all a little straighter in there. Yeah, I think that's much better. And I'm just going to deactivate it. I'm going to draw the second part of this in one moment. But I'm going to activate that line, and I'm going to go ahead and make it just a little thicker so you get the idea of what I mean in terms of depth. And I'm going to join it at the very end. So I'm going to take my pen tool. I'm going to come down here because I want to get this line in the foreground. And I'm going to click but not attach it yet. And I'm thinking I could probably get that curve. Well, I better add the anchor point. I had to select the stroke. I made no stroke. And I'm going to actually have that be much thicker. You can use as many different point sizes as you need to depict space. And I'm going to, I think I might like that, just like that, actually. And I'm going to zoom out just to show you, and I'm going to turn things off so you can see better. You get the idea here of the different elements in space that make up this chair. I have some more lines to accomplish, and I'm going to turn everything back on because I inadvertently drew a line on layer 1. This line I have on layer 1. See how it's blue? See how it's light blue there? I'm going to hit Command Copy. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to place it where it belongs. I'm going to lock those two layers, and I'm going to do Command B. And there it is. How's that? All right. And I think to emphasize that a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and make it a 6-point rule. I have a little more contrast. And I think to separate this from the rest, I'm just going to add that a smidgen thicker too. And then I can double check what I just did. And that exaggerates the space, but it gets you the right idea, and that's what the point of this is. If I zoom in, and I'm on my line art, and I take my solid arrow tool, and I grab this anchor point, I can make adjustments so that things start to connect. And this takes a little backtracking and just a little effort to double check and make sure that everything's connected. And you have to zoom in and take the time to let two different point sizes meet without too much little jaggy showing. All right. And you would proceed inside the chair and do the legs all in the same way. And the next thing I need to show you is shape. I'm going to turn everything off so you can see this a little better. Whoops, not that one. Here, these are shapes that are filled in. These are the negative shapes that sit around the outside edges of the chair. Depending on the nature of the chair you've drawn, you might have interior negative shapes as well. Well, the first thing I want to do is just reiterate that I know this should be a nice smoother curve, and what I can do is I can go in with my Convert Anchor Point tool. And in this tool, I can make adjustments as needed to get the curves just the way I would like them. All right. What I really want to make sure you understand is fill. You can apply fills as needed when you do your line art step. You're going to have sections of your chair where you might need a white box to fill and cover up lines that exist behind another section of chair. So you can toggle between having a fill box that's white or going under your color palette and filling it with black. So you could use a white box to block out a black area you wish not to have. So basically, to draw the shape, I would want my black stroke, or in this case, I could even turn that stroke off if I choose. Whoops. There we go. And I can take my pen tool, and I'm just going to draw the shape underneath this chair here. I'm going to just click, click, go to the edge of my box, and click again. And if I turn things off, you can see how, whoops, here we go, how I've added this shape. And I can convert the anchor points if I choose. Whoops. Let me select it. Whoops, whoops, wrong tool. Here we go. There, yes. I can select my anchor point. There we go. And make small adjustments to the curves on it to make it look a little more naturalistic. Now I'm going to zoom out and turn everything back on because there is something I neglected to tell you about, and that's what this box is right here. And I'm going to explain that by going back to this step. You can put this box in before you begin or at the end. What this box is going to serve as is a frame of reference to tie together all four sides of your drawing. This rectangle tool can make several different kinds of shapes. So all I have to do, and I'm going to make a new layer for this, is just click and drag, and I can make a framed box around my drawing. I can choose not to fill it, and then I can choose the stroke around, which could be a 1 or 2 point stroke, and I can choose it to be black, and I can just say okay. And if I turn this layer off, you can see the box around it. So back to this drawing. So basically what you're doing is constructing two different chairs with two different focuses about the concepts. This concept is about thick and thin lines. Thick lines coming forward, thin lines receding. And the chair on the left is about accurate perspective and proportion. This looks like a chair that goes back in space that I could physically sit on. The negative space drawing is about black shapes using your perception and proportion to depict the space the chair occupies by focusing only on the negative space. And you get a sense for that when I turn off the guidelines and turn off the photographic image from your sketchbook. Again, you might have a chair that'll have negative space within the middle, but you're worried about getting the detail, the angles, and the curves to help you define that particular chair. I hope you found this helpful, and you could go to adobe.com. There's all kinds of tutorials there to help answer questions. And please shoot me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help you that way, and use the discussion board to help one another. But my best advice is just practice and trial and error. Thanks.